In my head. Cockroaches. Written by Johnny Fist. Hi, my name's August. And no, I wasn't born in August. I have no idea why my parents named me that. But that's not the point. I'm only explaining so you don't think this story is about my name. It's about what's happening inside my head. You know the saying, he's got cockroaches in his head? Well, in my case, it's literal. Real cockroaches live in my head. Don't laugh. It's true. I had an MRI and all sorts of tests done. Every scan showed the same thing. Cockroaches in my head. Yeah, I tried to get rid of them, but you can't just spray insecticide in your face and expect them to die. They gave me injections and some other nonsense. To keep my brain alive, they said, but it didn't work. The creatures are indestructible, so I've been living with them for half a year now. The worst part is they talk to me, and before you say it, yes, I did go to a shrink. More than once. Didn't help. They still talk to me, very clearly, very coherently, but always about food. They don't talk about anything else, only food. For some reason, they think of my brain as food, and I can hear it. The worst part is, they talk about eating my brain at the most inappropriate moments, when I'm outside or busy doing something. Then I start yelling at them and banging on my head, telling them to shut up and stop even thinking about eating my brain. And then I hear them say,
"Oh, hear that? He's mad again. He'll fall asleep soon, and then we'll feast properly."
So I stopped sleeping. I couldn't let those little monsters eat my brain. Every night I slept only lightly. As soon as I started to drift off, I'd hear them rustling or whispering,
"He's asleep. Let's eat."
I'd jolt awake screaming, pounding on my head. I learned that noise scared them, but the bastards, as soon as I fell asleep again, would try to nibble on my cerebellum. I'd scream again. For the past 3 months, I've barely slept, which has caused several problems. First, I've become jumpy and irritable. I yell and lash out at everyone. Second, my face now looks like a 60-year-old man's. Third, I had to move out of my apartment. My nightly screaming kept the neighbors awake. My exhaustion spread to them. They couldn't stand it anymore. They had a choice. I didn't. They asked me to move out. I resisted, of course, and with my nerves shot, I didn't just argue, I screamed, fought, and even threatened them. They called the police a few times, and eventually I left. I found some half-abandoned apartment in a half-abandoned building, where there were no neighbors. So now my life was completely ruled by the cockroaches in my head, and I don't mean that figuratively. At some point, I even tried to negotiate with them. At first they refused, but eventually they started demanding food. Exotic stuff, avocados, anchovies, and some other hard-to-pronounce thing. I took the challenge and bought it all. Then I had to figure out how to deliver it to them, into my head. They said,
"Put it through your nose."
I was so tired and desperate that even this ridiculous plan sounded fine, so I started shoving chopped avocado pieces up my nose. It went into my airways and I nearly suffocated. The ambulance arrived just in time, but I was more afraid they'd take it all out and the cockroaches wouldn't get any and they'd keep tormenting me. Fortunately, they told me they got a little and I could rest.
"So delicious."
They said,
"We don't even want your brain anymore."
Believe it or not, they stayed quiet for 2 whole days. I finally slept, even took time off work just to rest. On the 3rd day, they started talking again, wanting my brain. By then, I was sure feeding them through my nose worked. I shoved everything they asked for up there. The worst was Korean-style carrots. It burned my throat and nose like hell. But they were satisfied. The ambulance started showing up every 3 days. The medics knew me by name. They were always shocked by what they had to extract from me. Eventually, I was sent, involuntarily this time, to a psychologist. He said I was perfectly healthy. Of course, everyone relapses sometimes, right? Chronic conditions even more so. Mine just happened to be unique. So I went back to my life with the cockroaches. We lived in this arrangement for about a month. Then winter came, and I got sick, a bad cold. I was weak, exhausted. I tried fighting the cockroaches, yelling, staying awake, but I couldn't anymore. I fell asleep. In the morning, I woke up in panic. I heard them chewing, saying,
What a delicious brain!
I screamed, jumped out of bed, ran around the room holding my head. I was sure this was it. They were going to eat my brain, and I'd die. I was so terrified I tripped on the bed frame, fell, and hit my head on the windowsill. Blood everywhere. I felt the wound, a hole big enough to fit a finger. I was actually happy. I thought, now they can crawl out. So I said, You're free now. For some reason, I remembered the movie Gladiator. When Maximus says that as he's dying, I felt like him, a hero freeing the Romans. Only I was freeing not people, but cockroaches. And not Rome, but my head, myself. Then I passed out. I thought that was it. The end. 2 days later, I woke up in a hospital bed, my head bandaged. I listened, and were they still there? Did they finish eating my brain? I asked them. Silence. I was terrified. The door creaked open. My 2 brothers walked in, cheerful, laughing. I stared at them in disbelief. How could they laugh when I was half dead? Then they went quiet and started speaking, and I heard their voices. The same 2 voices that had lived in my head all this time. Turned out those bastards had planted micro earpieces on me while I slept, glued to my earlobes and camouflaged so well I never noticed. Their professions made it easy. One's a sound engineer, the other's a makeup artist. It was all a prank. They'd paid for all the scans and bribed all the doctors. Even the psychologists played along. Half a year of that, and I nearly died. They said it was a birthday present for my 27th. A lesson because I'd been unbearable. They said it was just like in the movie The Game, and they were just teaching me a lesson. If I'd been able to get out of bed, I would have strangled them. Some joke because of them. I lost almost everyone I talked to. I got fired from 2 jobs, sold my apartment, and ended up in a dump. I shoved food into my nose that I'd never even heard of, and I literally went insane. All that, just a prank to teach me a lesson. So it turned out the cockroaches in my head were my own blood brothers, who, if not literally, then figuratively, ate my brain. Now I'm facing 3 months of psychiatric rehabilitation. And you know what? I'm even glad. They're letting me out exactly on their birthday. And believe me, by then my revenge plan will be ready.